We're thankful that today we can start planting the first of our large fruit trees on our property. This, of course, is a Ma'afala Samoan breadfruit. And so we've got our first hole dug. You'll notice that our holes are quite a bit larger than most people. There are many people, I'm sure, that would look at this and say, wow, that is major overkill. But this is one of the secrets as to why we get fruit much faster than our neighbors or anyone that we've known here on the island. This particular hole is 4 feet in either direction and 3 feet deep. What we're going to do, we've excavated the hole and we've divided the soil piles into two. This is our topsoil and this over here is our subsoil. And so the subsoil we're going to discard or basically use in other places around the property, but the topsoil we're going to be mixing and putting back in the hole. In this particular hole, our strategy is that we're going to be mixing this with black cinder, which is volcanic cinder from the eruption. And we're going to be mixing that, we're going to be putting it back in here, and then we're going to be putting layers of the topsoil as well as layers of the cinder, one layer then of rocks, and then we're going to continue the layering until we plant the tree. One thing you'll notice about this hole is that it's squared, right? It's not round. And the reason why is that typically your trees are in round pots, and when they come out, they're root bound. We're going to be loosening up the root ball of this tree, and we want to plant it in a square hole, and that is so that when the roots go out and they find the edge, they don't just treat it as a pot and become root bound in the large hole. We want them to find these straight, flat surfaces and be able to drill their way into the walls of the hole and extend beyond the hole. Today, the only thing we're going to be adding to this hole, besides the topsoil and the black cinders, is we're going to add several cups of dolomite lime. In this case, we're going to use Ag 10 lime, but you could use Ag 65. And that's going to help provide calcium as well as raise the pH. It's going to make it easier for the tree to absorb the nutrition. For example, I primarily use chicken manure as the primary source of fertilizer for my trees. In my own experience, I would say that there are 3 major factors that make my trees grow much better than average. And that is, number 1, the very large hole at the time of planting. Number 2 would be the use of black cinders mixed in with my soil, and number 3 would be a heavy layer of wood chips or mulch on top of the surface of the tree, not in the hole, but on top of the finished surface. These 3 things make an amazing difference, and with this tree, I estimate that I'll have a significant amount of food for my family within only a 2-year period of time, and it will be producing regularly and several times a year. These volcanic cinders are very light and airy. They're not like stones or rock. They can be crumbled in your hand. And when the volcano erupts and certain fragments of lava are tossed into the air, they cool as they come down and they form these cinders. And this, in my opinion, is the best growing medium on the island. I wouldn't mind planting trees entirely 100% in this. It's just amazing. It is, however, expensive and sometimes hard to get a hold of. A pile like this, $700 to $800 depending on where you live as far as delivery. But this is pretty amazing stuff. There are large portions of the island that have very little or no soil at all. And so they've got to bring in something, some kind of growing medium. And your options are Hamakua soil, or you could bring in cinder. Personally, I'd choose cinder every time. This cinder is absolutely amazing, and the plants just love it. If you do, however, find red cinder, which is quite a bit cheaper, looks the same except that it's just a burnt red in color, that the plants actually don't care for at all. And so it's just the pure black that they love. Once my hole is approximately 1/4 to 1/3 full, I go ahead and spread a layer of rock. And so I'm just using rocks that I've obtained from around the property. There really aren't a lot of rocks on this property, so I just gather whatever I can find, and I'm going to throw a layer of them down there in the tree hole. And this is what it looks like when I'm done spreading the rocks. So after the rocks, I keep alternating between the topsoil and the cinders, and then the topsoil and the cinders, different layers on top of each other. Of course, if I had access to it, I would be using some layers of finished compost in there. I do not, unfortunately, have access to that, and it'll take me quite some time to make that. So we're just going to use what we have at the present time. So here's another layer of the topsoil with some more of the dolomite lime sprinkled on top. If I had it, it wouldn't be a bad idea to sprinkle in some azomite, perhaps also a small amount of kelp, granulated kelp. However, this will do for now. I can always add those things closer to the surface of the tree at a later date. Okay, so here's our breadfruit tree out of the pot. You can see it is fairly root bound. We're going to need to loosen all this up so that the roots can spread. Otherwise, you may be able to, think you got away with it for a little while, but what's going to happen is it's just going to keep winding around and around and around, and in a lot of cases the tree will sort of get suffocated or strangulated by its own roots and not make the progress it should make. And so we're going to work on loosening this up. Yes, it will stress the tree. Personally, what we will do, we don't use a lot of chemical fertilizers, but what we will often do is right after we rough up all the roots and plant the tree, we'll put on it something called Miracle Grow Quick Start, which is basically a high vitamin and mineral substance that's meant to help the tree when it's in shock. So we do that one time, and that's usually sufficient to help the tree get settled. So it started raining here, but work must go on. We've loosened up the root ball here and got all of our roots laid out around the tree, and we're making sure to position the tree in such a way that it's a little bit higher than the surrounding soil. Okay, we want to make sure that, number one, this could settle a little bit after it's watered and after it has some time, and we want to make sure that it doesn't end up where this base of the tree ends up lower than the surrounding soil. That would be a recipe for quite a bit of potential diseases that the tree could suffer. And so at a minimum, it's got to end up equal to the surrounding soil, or preferably slightly higher. And so that's what we're doing here with that. But we're ready now to go ahead and fill in around and just go ahead and finish up the tree planting. So here's our wood chips, mulch. We're going to put several inches of this around each tree. A lot of people are really interested in making compost tea. This is compost tea the easy way. You just put this around your trees, and every day or every night as it rains here, it rains nearly every night, the rain is just going to filter right through this, bringing the compost tea to the roots of the plant. And this is going to keep the tree cool, the tree roots cool in the sunny weather. It's going to deliver nutrition in the rainy weather. It's just amazing. Ideally, we would have something that is a little bit older. This is about less than 2 months old. My preference would be maybe something 10 months old, but you work with what you have. This is a new property, a new orchard, new wood chips. We just do whatever we can with what we've got. So now let's go add this wheelbarrow and maybe another to that new tree. So when we spread the mulch, we spread it thick and as far around the tree as you have enough supply for. I mean, you can go out at least as far as the drip line, but right around the trunk, after we're done, we're gonna clean that up and take the bark back a little way, just so that we're not holding something damp and moist against the tree trunk. And that way the air can dry it out and circulate, and that should help it stay healthier. So that's the completion of our very first fruit tree planted on the property. Our Samoan breadfruit, this is going to serve us for many decades to come, and I can't think of a better tree to start out with for our family's journey towards self-sufficiency. So hope you found that helpful, and we'll look forward to seeing you on another video.